Cosplaying is a hobby whereby people dress in the costumes of their favourite characters. In my case, this relates mostly to anime, and will be where I focus my attention in this video, where I hope to explore what cosplaying says about my identity and my representation. Cosplayers are often represented as being unsociable, nerdy and unattractive among a number of other things, mostly due to the fact that the hobby is closely associated with fans of anime, video games and sci-fi, who are often similarly categorized. However, this is a hegemonic representation by the general public, proven by the fact that people only cosplay when at anime conventions, which is counterintuitive to the idea of being antisocial. More importantly, the representation is labelled negatively by peers and in the media. However, this representation can be converted into something positive in my eyes, as the term nerd gives me a sense of belonging with other people within the same category. Not only this, but the representation can be challenged by people in the media, with famous cosplays such as Jessica Negri, who challenges the negative stereotypes people have for the community, and also for me personally, allowing me to feel more empowered, allowing me to not be shackled down by what other people perceive cosplayers are, which without these challenges of stereotypes could lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy. Rogers identified that we hold a self-image as the person we think we are, and that we attempt to make it as close to our ideal self as possible, as that would be the person we'd like to be in terms of intellectual, emotional and bodily self, and the closer the self-image is to the ideal self, the higher the self-esteem. Cosplay involves taking the look and personality of the person you are portraying, meaning that when in costume I am able to obtain my ideal self and raise my self-esteem by, instead of attempting to change the way I look and make myself smarter, I instead take on the appearance and attitude of the character I portray. However, this would also mean that when not in costume, I'd have a low self-esteem, as my ideal self would be that character, who I can't make myself become unless I'm in costume, and surrounded by the people who acknowledge that person's attributes. Relating to self-image is called as mirror self. This is seeing the version of myself in the view of others. I only cosplay at conventions, meaning only people to get my mirror self from would be people who accept and love cosplay, and will praise me for my work and address me as the character, allowing me to fulfill the role as my ideal self. However, anyone outside of the convention will give me strange looks, as the costume looks out of place in our society, telling me that it is not the norm to wear the costume in public, due to most likely being ostracized if I did. This could be seen as a self-maintenance strategy, as outlined by Gergen, where I surround myself with people of similar interests in order to better myself. Although it is possible to become my ideal self through cosplay, this would be what is known as hyper-reality, where I live in this simulation of reality rather than reality, i.e. dressing as the characters rather than myself, allowing me to become my ideal self through simulation of reality. Baudrillard explained hyper-reality as being where simulation becomes more than reality itself. Goffman expressed there as being 6 dramaturgical presentations of the self. I will look at 4 of them, the first being personae, which involves putting on different masks in order to adopt different roles for different situations. In my case, the different characters I cosplay as would be my mask, as I take on their personalities. Even when I'm in a situation that's related to me, I still take in the part of their personality, such as their confidence or power that I lack, and when around people who recognize me as that character, I completely lose myself and take in the persona of that character, I do to the best of my ability. This is probably due to wanting to give people what they want from me, as they don't want to see my personality coming from the icon and symbol of the character. This also means that at times I will have a conflicting role as being the character and myself. The performance given while in this costume will be contradictory though, as by nature taking on the appearance and personality of someone else is far from my real self, making it cynical. However, committing this much to a character shows what I want my ideal self to be, making my performance sincere. This means that the performance given while in cosplay as a form of hyper-reality allows the performance to be sincere, as in that moment I lose myself and become the character, i.e. my ideal self. The active staging of the anime convention is combined with the costume of my costume to create the stage for the performance, as I don't cosplay anywhere other than an anime or video game convention, as it goes against the norms of society to be wearing a strange costume based in a fictional reality. However, it could also be because I don't want to live my entire life in hyper-reality, and I don't want to lose my real self in hyper-reality. However, at a convention surrounded by my peers of the same interests, I want to put on a costume in order to get positive strokes from them. This contradicts the stereotypes associated with cosplayers, as they are seen as antisocial. However, the only place where I and many other cosplayers would cosplay is at conventions where they can meet other cosplayers, which is the exact opposite of the stereotype. Finally would be my team of other cosplayers, who would increase my self-presentation, as without others' positivity towards wearing the costume, I feel as if it was wrong to wear something so weird, giving me a place of belonging. As I said before, other people are also necessary in order for me to live in the hyper-reality as the character, as I need people who recognise that character. When looking at cosplaying, the way I represent myself and my identity with it, it is good to look at a Jahari window made by Joseph Luft and Henry Ingram, as it can show exactly how much of my identity is being shown. First, the blind self would be almost entirely gone, due to strangers not knowing who I am, therefore won't be able to have any real insight into aspects of my identity I don't see. Then the open self would be incredibly small, but bigger than the blind self, due to the fact that it's possible due to the same interest in the character for both me and others to know aspects of my identity through my representation of that character. The hidden self is what would be the largest of all the sections, as I would be with people who don't know who I am, and I'm literally hiding myself through my costume, allowing me to know a lot about myself without anybody around me knowing anything about me. The unknown self would be the same size as it would always be. However, it is possible to argue that due to the characters being my ideal self through hyperreality, that this would increase the size of my open self due to being who I actually want to be. Burns says that folks need strokes, in the sense that everything we do in order to get attention from people, whether that be positive or negative. The positive strokes I receive in cosplaying are in the form of people who love anime and give me pleasure seeing the character in real life, and also who appreciate the ability to craft a costume by hand. It is, however, arguable that I cosplay in order to play with the negative representations of cosplayers, therefore giving me negative strokes from the general public who see me in my costume. This may be due to not being able to get attention from them in a positive way, so standing out and getting these negative representation strokes is better than getting no stroke at all. However, if this were true, I'd be wearing my costume all the time rather than just at conventions. Cosplay is seen as a part of pop culture due to the shows that represent being tasteless, sentimental, superficial, self-indulgent, addictive and dangerous. However, even if this were true, postmodernists say that that's okay because it's fun and allows for use and gratification feel to be achieved. It can also be considered as high culture, as by looking at an anime such as Baccano, which fulfills the criteria of high culture as being entropic as it darts through different timelines and storylines to make one cohesive story, and intrinsic due to the topic being relatable to everyone and having those feelings last far past the age it was made in. Although the legacies would disagree with this and say due to it being made after the Industrial Revolution it cannot be considered high culture. Marxists would also say that anime and cosplay are part of the present circuses of society, with the anime being the circuses that make me give into consumerism and play with the costume to cosplay as the bread, distracting me from the fact I'm being exploited to spend money on the interest that isn't arguably needed. In conclusion, I feel that cosplaying is key to my identity, through the ability to play out and become my ideal self through hyperreality, even if it may be a risk to my actual self, may not be all the time, and may even be dangerous to do it, as it could just be something that fuels consumerism, that people look down on due to the negative representations cosplayers receive. However, this doesn't stop me from choosing this as a way to represent myself around peers of a similar interest.